I'm sick.
Oh, that, turn away from the mic a little bit.
It was a fake cough.
It was a fake cough. All right. How's everyone doing?
Let's go with the introductions.
We are doing the December 2018 anime podcast.
Final Friday,
FF. It is time to talk about Goblin Slayer. Everyone introduce yourself. Left to right.
I'm going to go first then. So I'm Red Baron. I'm the dude who does some of the hosting, but the main hosts are our good friends Getsuru and Neo Tokyo.
I guess I'll go next. That's a weird way to introduce yourself, and then introduce two other people. So
go Getsuru and Neo Tokyo.
Of course. If I don't know if it's entirely coming through, but I'm a little sick under the weather. I'm so fortunate. But I am here to discuss Goblin Slayer, and I, of course, am the Black Knight, Lawrence Tubbs. I don't really.
You're Blackest Knight. You are Blackest Knight. There are two knights.
Yeah. See, I kind of stopped using that handle a while ago. I should probably pick it up. It's a nice one, but I feel like it's probably just a little over you. Who knows? Just somebody else. Just take the hot potato.
All right, I'm
the coffee pot, if you will.
And I also help out with Outpost. We're doing the anime podcast. Can't wait to talk about this one. And I'm going to be doing Overwatch League content in the next year, so look out for that whenever I'm not busy as hell. Someone else pick up this potato.
Striker.
Oh, okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The name is Striker Red, and I hit every single one of you.
What?
I'm kidding.
Wonderful PR. 676 here. I finally got my mic working, and
if it's not a goblin, he doesn't care.
Yeah, that's about right.
And I, of course, am Neo Tokyo Tempo. All right, so we all watched Goblin Slayer this month, and It has been quite the journey. Goblin Slayer started off very controversial. There was a massive outcry against the first episode, and then mostly silence ever since. And of course, the controversy involved a certain scene in the first episode where one of the characters who was introduced like she was going to be a main character was violently raped by goblins.
Yeah, I was gonna say violently assaulted, but yeah, there we go. That's another way to put it. But yeah, so the show is like a very grim and dark fantasy. I personally liked the show so far. I also have been getting into the manga because of the show. And I like it because I like dark fantasy. I like Game of Thrones. I like Dark Souls. I like Grim Dawn. I mean, hell, I even like Valhalla Nights, and Valhalla Nights is like almost as dark as this stuff. It can get darker, but I thought it was great. There are some flaws that we're going to get into, but it's been quite a ride. Controversy aside, do you guys want to jump in?
I thought there was a little bit of talk afterward because there was the meme about fucking the goblins after it, because that meme it's fuck this, fuck this, fuck this. And it was the goblins will rape you. We must kill the goblins. We must fuck the goblins. Yeah, so
is that kind of like the we must fuck a game console. We must fuck the earth. We must fuck a cat. Yeah, that meme.
It was along that meme because there was one kind of cute looking goblin in one of the scenes. So
what the fuck?
I didn't notice that one.
Yeah,
what?
It was in the background, and I can find it, and then I'll post to the page, but it's there.
The only good goblin is a dead goblin.
I agree with him. I want to kill goblins.
the Goblin Holocaust is real and it's gonna happen. So if you're a goblin watching this, prepare yourself.
They're on the green moon. I'm not going to spoil anything, but in the manga, it is theorized that the goblins come from another planet.
It's
They're Martians.
The show too.
They're Martians.
Yeah, I found the show to be a very interesting take on the fantasy genre. Usually, fantasies go for a grand epic adventure on a massive scale, where you're saving the world and all that. But this one, its take was about, and the grand adventure was sort of the backdrop to the story they were trying to tell, in which the Goblin Slayer is really just an ordinary dude doing what has to be done in order to keep people safe in a dangerous world. It follows one man simply doing his job.
See, that's the thing. Like, it gave me, on one hand, I got the same vibe as the general, like, JRPG. Like, there's a hub world, and, you know, there's, like, Smith, and all. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I would say even further, I feel like it draws, with its plot and design, it's more like a D&D game that's being animated.
Yeah. They even in the manga, there's even like a little shot where they're showing the gods playing dice, and he's not affected by it because that's the gift. Like, it's like every being has a gift, and his gift is, you know, being born with a fate where he's not affected by the whims of their dice rolls, and like, that shot was like direct reference to either D&D or Backgammon or some other classic. Yeah.
They were also referencing Lord of the Rings, for instance, the drinking game between the elf and dwarf characters.
Yes.
Yep.
Mind if I interject?
Not at all.
All right. So to me, it's not as much as a dark fantasy to me as rather more like a revenge story, because this is an anime about a guy who wants to seek revenge on a species of creatures who killed his sister.
They wiped out his entire village and killed his parents as well.
Exactly. This is more about a revenge story to me. And he decided to go full Doom guy and exterminate. And that's why I enjoyed so much.
See, I enjoyed especially watching the show. I appreciate the real emphasis on creativity that is especially in the disposal of the goblins. But my main problem was when it came with the story is that everyone treats these goblins as if they are small time threats. But when you do that, these goblins are able to absolutely run roughshod over people and end up just committing horrible like acts, and they are able to kill people easily, but they're still somehow treated within this universe as small time threats.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, like I have a lot of JRPGs in my game collection, and the characters, it's almost like it's intentionally written that way. The characters talk like NPCs. They legitimately.
I feel like. Sorry to interrupt you there. I feel like that's sort of the purpose of the B plot, the sort of story that's going on in the background with like the Demon Lord and stuff like that. I feel like that's the purpose of having such an epic story going on in the background, is to sort of explain why other characters don't really see the goblins as something to care about all that much, because there's a lot going on in the world, a lot bigger threats than goblins. So though we as the audience and the Goblin Slayer himself an extension, or maybe us an extension, but
And also those around him. Don't forget that. There's people who directly... Yeah.
Yeah, they see the goblins for what they are as a very, very serious threat, but the other characters are busy slaying orcs and whatever other horrible monsters that are probably in and of themselves a lot more dangerous than goblins. And because of that, they don't really see, what's actually going on.
It's like pneumonia. If you don't take pneumonia seriously, it'll kill you. If you're like, oh man, I'm just gonna go out and act like I don't have pneumonia and just you can literally die from pneumonia if you don't treat it. And there have been deaths from pneumonia even in modern times. People legit die from pneumonia. And it's something like that. If you don't take something serious, and it has a gradual effect of holding you down, it will kill you. That's how that works. And that's why I was comparing. Hold on. That's why I was comparing the background characters to NPCs. Because here's the thing: when you look at story writing, you really can't give that much depth to background characters. I mean, look. You're watching a TV show. You don't want to lose focus. You don't want your audience members to lose focus. You don't want Blade Runner to be like about that random like soup or like random restaurant guy that are like Dick not Dick that Deckard bought his food from. You want it to be about Deckard finding the replicants and the story of the replicants and maybe even their creators. Okay, cool. We have 3 main stories there. Maybe some, side story about like his love interest and her realizing she's a replicant. Cool. We have a story there, right? We don't want the story to be about random passerbys and random background characters. Like I get that that's a norm, okay? So you're gonna get, it's a given. You're gonna get characters in the background who sound like NPCs in a video game. They're gonna be like, "Oh, didn't you hear? The evil demon lord is attacking," or blah 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 blah. You're gonna get a lot of that in especially like fantasy animes. But what's interesting to me is that they're behaving in a way where it's robotic. I mean, if we can go into spoilers, I read the manga, and watching the anime as well. The townspeople are not interested in even killing the goblins unless there's something to be gained from it. Like the guild realizes, because the guild are higher IQ, they have more than a few scripts running in their heads. If we're talking video game scripting here, they understand those goblins are going to wipe out the entire hub. There's nothing is going to be left if those goblins wipe out that village. I'm sorry, that farm. So. When he says, "Hey, my friend's farm is the place I live is about to get attacked by goblins," barely anybody, like a couple people offer to help him, but barely anybody else is willing to help him. They tell him, "Dude, why should we care? Those are literally goblins. We're not going to get anything out of it." And at that point, you notice, even if he's presenting a case before them, it's not until money is offered by the guild, and the guild, it's heavily indicated they're fully aware of the threat the goblins are. They're even thankful to him.
I feel like I feel like the background characters have a little bit more depth than you're giving them credit.
No, they have depth, and they have depth on their own. But in this tunnel vision, they're not given any.
I wasn't able to make my point.
Go ahead.
The thing about what I was going to say is one of the things that I noticed immediately is that despite them not really caring much about the goblins and only really and sort of not given a ton of characterization, they immediately all of them were immediately taken back when Goblin Slayer actually approached them for help. So that tells me that they at least know Goblin Slayer very well, and they're able to analyze how he acts. Another thing is waiting until they're offered a reward is in itself characterization. That tells you that these people are at least somewhat selfish, and that these are people that joined the Adventurers Guild to
make money,
to be mercenaries, to make money, to find glory. And that's part of what makes Goblin Slayer's virtue so apparent in contrast to them, is that Goblin Slayer is not interested in things like that. He's interested in protecting people from goblins. But that does, in fact, give a certain amount of depth to the background characters, who many of which don't even have names.
Certainly.
Yeah, and just to build on that, most of them, like, if you even look at like the younger characters, the ones that are just joining into the guild, all of them are like trying to get straight to like the bigger creatures, the one that are going to get them more fame, more glory. It's not even really about money for a lot of them. A lot of them are in it for the adventure, and it's like, well, what's the adventure of killing goblins? They all view them as like low rank, like, oh, someone below me should be able to take care of this. And they don't understand the threat because they don't deal with goblins as much as Goblin Slayer. So they don't know about like the Goblin King, and they've probably seen like a champion before, but unless the quest is kill a goblin champion, like they're just like, whatever. Just throw that to the side.
Go ahead. I was going to say that it's a terrible mistake from their part, honestly. Underestimating your opponent has been proven several times to be one of the deadliest things you could do.
I mean, it's basically it's basically written in the oldest strategy books, is not to underestimate your opponent. I mean,
it does seem, especially the some of the weaker adventurers we see challenging what would typically be seen as the weaker creatures in the fantasy setting. There is no, like, well, for at least a good chunk of the series, as I had saw it, that there was like no formal sort of training happening. Like these were just a couple of plucky young upstarts who were like, I got a couple of weapons or something. Let's go into this cave and beat a goblin to death.
There was a couple. There was a couple early on where they showed that some of the higher ranked people, whenever they're waiting around, were training some of the lower ranked people like how to fight. And then they also mentioned they're like, we're trying to set up a system so that the older adventurers that can't take quests anymore will start training the younger adventurers.
I remember that. There's even panels. Yep.
Yeah, they mentioned it probably around episode like 6, and they're like, Goblin Slayer, you can't die because we need you to be able to train the future generations to kill goblins. He's like, okay, I will not die then.
I feel that just made me think. I feel like they did a very good job at making, despite having these characters be somewhat greedy and somewhat selfish, they did a great job at still providing them enough depth where they weren't written off as just these
wandering robots,
money bagging mercenaries that didn't care about anything. They still had good things about them despite their flaws. They were just all in it. They were just all in it for different reasons that Goblin Slayer was in it. and the show wasn't resentful to these people for for having their own reasons. And it's very good characterization.
It's also good to remember that there is separate guilds. So, like, the group that Goblin Slayer is part of is a conglomeration of different guilds from different realms, because they had to deal with the goblin issue as well.
Yeah.
So it's trying to show that, like, the goblins are becoming more and more of a nuisance in this world. Just to stick kind of to the MMO kind of trope, it's almost like I don't know if you guys played Eve or heard about, like, all the issues that they've had
Eve
with
Online.
their server. Yeah. There was some, like, troll people that decided to lure in, like, some of the high rank enemies to, like, the starting base, and they would just kill any new player that, like, spawned in, and, like, no one could like, the game became unplayable for like 2 weeks, and the mods even had issues, like, trying to remove these ships.
Yeah, because they just respawn.
Yeah.
You can't really. Yeah.
So it's almost like the goblins are that, like, they're growing and they're getting moved into different areas, and now they're becoming a nuisance to everyone. We're like, okay, wait, now we have to, like, figure out, we have to get a giant group of normal players to go kill this one enemy so that we can move them. So it's kind of like that, where it's like it's a medium rank character now entered a low rank area and is now just wiping through the game and making it unplayable. And that's more of, like, the theme that I'm seeing. And on top of that, the enemies are leveling up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah.
I feel like I keep saying I feel like I think it's time to talk about the man himself. Talk about Goblin Slayer himself.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have some strong things to say about him.
He's he's like the stoic hero. He's a lot like Doom guy, like Doom Slayer.
Let's hear. Does 676 have a take? He's been quiet.
I like Goblin Slayer's characterization. Just I don't know. I really like the awkwardness that's presented, where he's just, well, they told me I can't die, so now I can't die.
I feel like
I like it.
I feel like he has a lot of. He seems like a very flat character on the surface of him, but he's actually very well characterized while saying almost nothing at all.
I think that's what really nails it for me, is that they can doing so little, they're still characterizing so much of his personality, and even the small interactions he had, that confusion, things like that, really draw all these other characteristics under the surface.
Yeah, you can you can tell. First of all, you can tell that he's very pragmatic, very practical. The next thing you can tell is that he's actually very, very curious and always willing to learn as much as possible and absorb as much information as possible.